I used to think rain smelled like freedom. Now, standing at the roof's edge, with cuffs biting my wrists, and an alpha breathing at my nape, I know freedom is just an illusion so long as someone is breathing down your neck. The city below is a raked garden of light, neon rills, chrome-streaked streets, headlights smearing into watercolor. Rain patters against my lashes and beads on the iron cuff chain. The wind pushes at my balance, generous as a drunk friend. The concrete lip under my boots is slick, and behind me, he stands too still, like a promise the world is about to keep. "Say you surrender," he murmurs. Ruan doesn't raise his voice. He compresses the world into it. Somewhere under that control is a man who could shatter a door with his shoulder and not look back. Somewhere above it is a uniform that says he never has to. I smile without showing teeth. "Say, you don't want to mark me right here." A breath, deep and slow, passes over the shell of my ear. Heat crawls down my neck, uselessly at war with the rain. "Kris," he says my name as if tasting a word he has been forbidden. The rain has made his scent thinner, but it's there. Clean smoke, steel filings, the peppered ozone of a storm about to crest. My own scent spikes on instinct, and I swallow it down, useless as a hand pressed to a wound. "Let go of the edge," he says. I glance at the street far below. There are easier ways to die than falling, but none of them are as tidy. And miss this view? It's the only complimentary thing the city's given me in months. "You're not funny." "I am," I say. "You just have poor taste." His hand closes on the chain between my cuffs and draws it back a measured inch. "Not hurt." "Not yet." The metal scrapes my skin, and the bite of it hooks something deep in my spine. The rain turns each breath into a ribbon of cold. "You ran," he says, as if reciting an entry on a list. "You burned your registration and vanished. You've had 3 names in 4 weeks. You slept under 5 roofs we know of and 1 we don't. I don't appreciate being made to chase." "You could have stayed home," I say lightly. "Hot tea, a lukewarm policy memo. No need to stomp around in the rain catching strays." "I don't break," he says. I press. "Until something gives." "Good news," I say. "I don't give." His silence is almost warm. The city breathes in a long, wet sigh. Somewhere a siren starts and coils away into the night. I can feel his focus on the back of my neck like a thumb. "Say you surrender," he says again, low, "or I'll take you down hard, and you won't like how that goes." "If you have to tell me I won't like it," I say, "you've already thought about how I would." A small, precise pause. He leans closer, and the cut on my mouth, earned 2 alleys ago when a brick wall forgot to move, reopens. I taste iron. A thin line of blood runs to the corner of my lip, and a single drop falls to the chain. The world shifts. The metal warms under my tongue's memory of it. The air goes conductive. Something under my skin stirs like a sleeping animal startled awake. At the corner of my vision, where rain should be a gray veil, the drops glow faintly, as if the light itself were listening. The cuff chain hums, a note I feel along my molars. The thin, nearly invisible pattern etched into the inner rim of the manacle flares to life with a pulse of gold. Ruan inhales, sharp. The same light ripples along the veins of his wrist, where the rain has plastered his sleeve to his skin. I don't have to see his face to know his eyes just changed, narrowed, then softened. The bond thread, every horror story begins with it, doesn't bind, not yet. It resonates. It remembers touch and answers to heat, to breath, to the small violences we pretend are accidents. My mouth goes dry. "Don't," I say, and I'm not sure whether I mean him or the city or the part of me that wants to turn into the pressure instead of away. The chain stops humming. The light fades to a reluctant ember. The drop of blood loses its glow and dilutes to harmless pink in the rain. Ruan's voice finds me from inches away. "You knew what those cuffs carried." "I read memos," I say, "even the boring ones." Then why test it? I like to know which way the trap's going to spring. I tilt my head, as much as the grip on the chain allows, and whether the man holding the other end will pull or wait. His knuckles brush my shoulder as if by error, and heat cracks through me with the clean shock of lightning. Not pain. A memory of a promise I never made. The wind kicks up, and the water stings my face like testing fingers. There's nowhere for me to look that isn't him or the drop. You've made me look incompetent, he says conversationally, right in my ear. Which is why I think you keep talking. You mistake my patience for permission. I mistake your job for your conviction, I say. Maybe I shouldn't. You shouldn't, he agrees. I won't, I say, and it sounds like an oath. He waits. He's good at it. I wonder if he ever waited for anything before me, or if he only practiced on lesser men. I imagine him opening the cage and standing by, hands clasped, while the animal inside decided which wall to test. I imagine his mouth when he decides it's time to close the door. Say you surrender. Say you don't want to mark me right here. The chain tightens a fraction. Don't tempt me. You don't believe in temptation. Not as an excuse. He pulls back the slightest degree, enough that air re-enters between us. It feels like losing a blanket I didn't know I needed. His scent thins. The rain rushes after it. My pulse misbehaves, then pretends innocence. Step away from the edge, he says. We'll walk down. Quietly. You'll answer questions in a dry room with 4 walls and a lock. And a pen, I say. Don't forget the pen. Can't do justice without it. Justice, he repeats, and the word sounds new in his mouth, like he's rolling a pebble he doesn't trust. You think that's what you're owed? I think it's what I owe, I say, to people who don't get asked to sign their names to lies. The chain lowers. He's still holding it, but the force is different, as if the command in his arm has stepped aside to let something else speak. For a heartbeat, the rain becomes a curtain between us and the city, a thin, bright privacy. You had a choice, he says. I smile. So do you. The wind tears at us again. The roof's door stands open behind him, black mouth, red exit sign's reflection pulsing in the puddles. The stairwell beyond will smell like old dust and new paint, like wills written and rewritten. If I take one step back, the night will narrow into a hallway and a procedural, memory of hand on rail, pace of foot, the thought of nothing as a kind of mercy. I should step back. Instead, I look at him. It feels like peering over another edge entirely. There's a line at the corner of his mouth that isn't sternness. It's fatigue, old and careful. His jaw is cut clean enough to slice paper. Rain shines on the fan of his lashes. There's a scar at his temple, half hidden by hair that pretends to be regulation length. His eyes, dark in this light, hawk quiet, are not cruel. They are relentless. Ruan, I say, to hear if my voice will hold it. It does, barely. Step back, Kris. Quieter, please. The word lands like a coin in a church dish. I breathe. I count 1, 2, 3, because I learned a long time ago that if you can get to 3, you can sometimes get to 4. The city smears and refocuses. My wrists ache. My cheek burns where the cut has reopened. Somewhere below us, a woman laughs like glass. The chain slackens another inch. His hand settles, careful, absurdly careful, at my elbow. The contact pops a row of nerves like buttons. The cuff's inner etching warms, a heartbeat behind mine. Fine, I say, as if conceding a small point in a long argument neither of us plans to win. I pivot a half step, heels scraping water from the concrete lip, and let the edge slide out from under me until there's only wet roof at my back and a line of heat in front of me where his body has been. He doesn't move away. He holds the chain, not like a leash, but like a shared handle to the same door. Good, he says. Relief doesn't enter his voice. That would be too honest. The emergency light stutters. Inside the building, a generator coughs. Rain hardens, suddenly louder, and with the steady, unforgiving grace of fate, the past picks that moment to bite. A siren we both know by heart bleeds up through the stairwell. 3 short, 1 long, final, the tone for a new order enacted. Registration. Enforcement. The law. I don't turn my head. I don't have to. I see the way his gaze narrows, not at me, but at the world. The vein at his throat ticks. The chain in his hand tightens a semaphore of decision. Looks like your dry room is getting crowded, I say softly. Something like a smile tugs at his mouth and fails. We're done here. We haven't started. We started, he says. And the rain, for one impossible second, smells exactly like the first time I chose to tell the truth in a room designed for lies. The cuff's etching pulses once, a small flare against my skin, and the roof dissolves into memory, faster than a blink, cleaner than a cut. 3 weeks earlier, the rain smelled like freedom. I walked out of the office with my badge still warm from the scanner and a folder under my arm that could have ended a life. I thought the hardest thing I'd do that day was say no. I wasn't in the room when they decided what to do with me. I've only ever walked its perimeter, glass, metal, order. The kind of order that squeaks on the cloth when you wipe it. The kind that thinks it's safety. Later, when I was already running, I got my hands on the minutes. Redacted, of course. And 2 silent camera angles from the ceiling fixtures. Later still, the bond thread between us filled in edges the cameras couldn't. The way a knuckle tightens, the temperature of a breath held too long. Memory can be a liar, but bodies don't lie well. Even when they wear uniforms. So, picture it with me. The council chamber looks like an expensive aquarium. The glass is thicker than you think. It hums with the building's arterial power. Metal ribs arc overhead, a whale cage for men who want to be whales. The long table is matte black, fingerprint-proof, shame-proof, truth-proof. Nothing lives in here except decisions. 6 alphas, orderly as teeth. 3 betas, thin faces angled at data. 1 empty chair for ceremonial honesty. And Ruan, 36, tall, frugal with gestures, standing because sitting would imply comfort, and he doesn't believe in that. Registration must be universal, the eldest says. His voice is a document in a suit. If we allow discretionary gaps, we invite chaos. Chaos doesn't need invitations, one of the betas murmurs. He thinks he whispers. The camera's mic loves him anyway. Omegas with unresolved records will register, the eldest continues, ignoring the leak. Those who have obstructed investigations will be remanded. His eyes flick down the agenda. Christopher Hale. I can tell when they say my name from the way Ruan's shoulders still. Like a horse deciding whether to shy or step forward and bite. The council doesn't talk about me as a person. They talk about a fact pattern with legs. Former investigator, the eldest lists. Refused directive in a case of public safety. Burned registry, multiple aliases. Alive, someone says, almost disappointed. Alive, the eldest agrees. Which is why we are fortunate to have a new head of order. Commander Ruan, your mandate. Ruan doesn't bow. He nods. Precise. No pressure in the jaw. No tempo in the vein at his temple. Half a degree colder than the room already was. Bring him in, he says. Not kill. It sounds like a predicate waiting for its object. Use the cuffs, the eldest adds, as if mentioning an umbrella. He knows the protocols. I do, I tell the recording, 3 weeks late. And I read the memos. They move on to enforcement thresholds, the color of forms, the semicolons you can murder with. The camera watches the way Ruan listens. He listens like a man testing a fence post, like he intends to lean the whole field on it. By the time the meeting adjourns, the decree has a number and a press release. The world will learn to call it safety before the week ends. That's how numbers work. They look like truth if you print them in a large enough font. The footage clips to an office I know better. Glass box nested in a bigger glass box. 2 chairs, 1 desk, a shelf of binders that once tried to kill me with boredom. The city sprawls beyond the windows, its skin a sheen of rain. Ruan stands with his back to it, like a painting that refuses to be framed by anything but itself. His deputy knocks and doesn't wait to be invited. Beta, late 20s, good at not sweating. Sir. Report. We had him, the deputy says, and doesn't immediately die, which tells you Ruan is not cruel for sport. 2 nights ago. Dockside. He was moving through Bay 4 under the name Jonas Klein. We'd cross-referenced purchases on the vendor account and you spooked him, Ruan says. Not a question. The deputy swallows. He made me. I don't know how. The pattern. He anticipates sweep angles. He used the forklift chassis as cover, cut walkway C, slid under the chain, and the deputy cuts himself off, realizing he's started to admire me out loud. And Ruan prompts. He, left me a note. What did it say? If you want to catch me, try showing up 5 minutes earlier. A beat. Sir, I didn't write that. I thought it. Interesting how often those get mistaken for each other. Ruan's mouth thinks about a curve and elects not to. You think he has an inside line. I think he thinks like one of us, the deputy says, bracing for pain. He knows the audit trails. He knows me. That's the sentence nobody says. Ruan gestures, and the deputy lays a small evidence box on the desk, the kind with a tamper seal and smudged hope. Inside, a cracked burner phone, a paper receipt for 3 coffees at 0400, and a cufflink I didn't know I'd lost. My fingerprints on the phone, someone else's on the cup. The cufflink gleams, ridiculous in the hard light. Ruan doesn't touch anything at first. He reads the inventory slip with the same attention you'd offer a confession written in pencil. Sir, the deputy says, trying not to put his hands anywhere. About Hale. They say he refused to process the Vasquez order because it was sloppy. He said the woman wasn't guilty of what we were told to make her guilty of. He called it a doctored trail. They, Ruan says, and the word could slice paper, say many things. It's on the internal logs. Logs are written by people. Just ice that hasn't decided whether to crack. What do you think? The deputy falters, then picks a hill to die on. I think he didn't run until after he told the truth in a room that doesn't like hearing it. Silence. The city rehearses thunder against the window. Ruan opens the evidence box. And here's the part the cameras don't quite catch, but I felt anyway. 3 weeks and 20 blocks away, when his fingers brush the cufflink, mine, silver, nicked at the edge from a wall I failed to miss. Something under my skin turns its head. The bond thread isn't binding yet. It's suggestion. It's a static field that decides, absurdly, to remember us. The cameras register it as a brief aperture pulse, the way the lens corrects when the light shifts. My body registers it as a warmth between the ribs, as if someone struck a tuning fork and pressed it, gently, to the inside of my chest. On the footage, the light on the desk glances gold across his knuckles, then is only light again. His eyes narrow 0.5 millimeter. His throat moves. I put the minutes down. In the present, in my borrowed room where the kettle never quite boils and the window has lost the art of closing, I press my palm to my sternum and wait for the echo to fade. Back in the office, Ruan closes his hand around the cufflink, then opens it. He doesn't look at his deputy. He's not leaving the city. Sir, we think he's rotating safe houses. He has help. He has habits, Ruan says. Even men who reinvent themselves keep their favorite mistakes. He taps the receipt. Coffee at 4, dockside. He'll have sat where he can see all 4 exits. He'll have left a tip because he can't help apologizing to waitstaff by proxy. Deputy blinks. You know him. No, Ruan says slowly. and I can feel the word reach for a different one. I know the terrain. The deputy nods like he understands. He doesn't. He's never been hunted by anything but his own ambition. Sir, about the cuffs. Authorization requested to deploy an A-series. Ruan's gaze drops to the form. A-series are for volatile captures. Hail's volatile, the deputy insists, eager to supply a good reason to be cruel. Ruan lifts a hand, just 2 fingers barely there, and the deputy chokes off whatever that sentence was going to make of me. A-series if he fights. B will do if he thinks. He's more dangerous when he thinks. I should be offended. I'm not. I like being seen, even if it's through a sight. Sir, the deputy tries one last time. Why him? You could assign it out. He humiliated us on dockside. He humiliated me. Did he? Ruan says. Entirely bloodless. Go, Ruan says. Sleep. Then read his files again. Read the parts that aren't about him. The parts that... The names he saved, Ruan says, and it lands like a thesis statement he didn't mean to share. The ones he wrote in margins. The deputy leaves. The door closes, with that expensive hush that says nothing loud happens here. Ruan stands alone, which is how he is truest. City ghosts across the glass. He picks up the cracked burner and turns it in his hand, like he's weighing the shape of my choices. He sets it down. He touches the receipt with a fingertip, and I feel the bond thread answer from behind my ribs, a single unhelpful thrum. Don't, I tell my body, and it obeys for once. Ruan holds my cufflink up to the light. There's the smallest notch on its edge. He traces it once, a man translating with his thumb. The cameras don't care. The minutes don't care. Only the field we woke by accident cares, and it's not a thing we can file. He tucks the cufflink into a drawer and locks it. The sound is ordinary. It has locked 1,000 ordinary things. Pens, papers, suspicions. It does not know when it locks the beginning of a story. He turns to the window. The city is now full downpour. The glass streams. It mirrors him back, tall, spare, entirely made of decisions. Somewhere in the reflection, a line at his mouth looks tired, and he doesn't forgive it. He picks up the phone and calls dispatch. Commander Ruan, he says. Authorization, pursuit priority. 1. Subject, Hail Christopher. Former investigator. Do not engage without instruction. If you see him, tell him I said he's late. Sir? Comes the tinny reply. He hangs up. He does not smile. He doesn't need to. Out in the wet, the hunt has already shifted from assignment to intention, and he knows it. He doesn't want to admit it. He will, eventually. I close the file on my end. The kettle finally boils, sulking. I pour water over a cheap tea bag and watch the brown bloom spread like good trouble. The bond thread is quiet now, only a faint warmth where my ribs want to cage it. This isn't personal, I tell the empty room. The room, which has heard better lies, pats me on the shoulder and drips from the window frame in sympathy. Out there, in the aquarium of glass and law, a man who believes in control knows he's already taken one step past it. He feels the give underneath his boots and keeps walking. He doesn't break. He presses, until something cries out. I will not be the first voice to do it. I tell myself that. I drink my bitter tea. I watch the rain, and when the lights in the building across the street shiver and go still, I know the decree has a number now, and a night shift. Pressing rubber stamps into it, and my name sits in the middle like a coin in a palm you aren't sure is giving or taking. The bond thread hums once, exactly like a warning, or a promise. Underground passages hold the city's breath. They smell like coins and damp shoes, and the kind of soup that doesn't admit what it's made of. When I run through them, I don't look like a man who's running. I look like a man late to a life he keeps borrowing by the hour. By morning, I'm Jonah Park, laminated ID, a transit card with just enough value To feel legal, a cap from a logistics company that folded 2 winters ago. The man at the kiosk stamps my fake receipt and never looks up. Underground, no one looks up. If you keep your hands easy and your pace precise, you can be anything. If you're an omega with a face that remembers order, you can be a ghost with good posture. No alpha likes when an omega is smarter, I tell the tunnel. A line of black tile listening like a congregation. Even when it's just chess on the streets, the tunnel doesn't argue. It coughs a train onto the platform and lets me disappear between a woman with a pink suitcase and a man with a dog in a coat, more expensive than mine. The bond thread hums in my ribs like a radio searching for a station. Sometimes it finds one, heat thinned with steel. The disciplined drag of a breath that refuses to be a sigh. When it sharpens, I know he's near, not close enough to touch, but close enough to account for. Ruan moves through the city above ground, and I map him by absences. A lunch stall that suddenly cleans its counter, a market aisle that straightens, a motel clerk who starts telling the truth without realizing. An alpha's gravitational field is civic-minded, if nothing else. In the cheap cafe under the overpass, my name is Miguel. I order coffee that tastes like somebody wrung a sock into hot water and a bowl of rice with an egg. The woman behind the counter takes my coins and doesn't notice my cuffs aren't visible. I sit where I can see all 4 exits, because I'm not brave, I'm tidy. I write reports I'll never file. They steady my hands. Subject: me. Condition: hungry but functional. Notes: Ruan favors flanking angles on narrow approaches, deploys soft. Blockade first, hard only if provoked, refuses pointless force. Avoid corridor K. Bay, 4 patterns. I draw the cafe as a diagram. Salt shaker equals blind spot, napkin dispenser equals leverage point. Door squeak equals 5 seconds warning. It's a ridiculous ritual, but rituals are just small gods you invent to keep your mind from opening its mouth and swallowing you whole. The bond thread flickers. A rush of warmth skims my skin like breath through wool. Not here. Not yet. But he's awake. Rain today, the thread says, in his voice. And something like, don't make me say please again. I smile into my coffee. Then catch up. He does. Not to the cafe. I'm too careful for that. But to the market 3 streets over, where the awnings sweat and the voices barter layers onto layers of sound. My name is Alex here, and I know the fishmonger's cat and the boy who sells unlicensed chargers from a duffel bag and calls every man older than him Uncle. I'm looking at oranges, which is an optimism I haven't earned, when the heat in my ribs spikes, not pain. Recognition. He's close. I don't turn. Turning is for people who like to be seen. I become a study in citrus, weight, skin, thumb test. The air behind me smooths like cloth pulled tight. A stall owner stops mid-complaint. The boy with the chargers tucks the bag under his table as if it could become legal by proximity to authority. Don't, I tell my pulse. And it doesn't. It gallops instead. Ruan doesn't touch me. He picks up nothing. He simply stands where I can find him with my spine. It's rude. It's effective. I roll an orange into my palm and speak to the vendor without looking away from the fruit. They sweet this week? Sweet, he says urgently, like a man offering absolution. Very sweet. Behind me, a draft of cooler air as a coat moves. A footstep that makes even the plywood consider professionalism. If I leaned back an inch, I'd find him at my shoulder. If I turned, I'd find him already waiting for my joke. I don't give him either. When I pay, the vendor holds my change too long. His eyes flick over my head and dart away. I take the coins and the orange and walk toward the exit, where the tarps sag like overheard secrets. The bond thread tugs. His attention follows me down the aisle. Cataloging, gate, choice of door, the way I favor the side with the scar that flips its shape when it rains. He files me like a dangerous idea, I file him like weather. Under the overhang, I bite my orange. It floods my mouth with summer I didn't ask for. I hold up a slice between two fingers, a small, obscene blessing, and don't quite look back. Someone laughs low behind me. It doesn't reach his mouth. Not yet. By dusk, I've worn 2 more names, and one of them almost sticks. I check into a motel whose name designed itself in a hurry. Sunview Inn, although what it views is the back of a warehouse and a slice of river the color of memory when it goes gray. The clerk doesn't ask for ID, because I sigh exactly like a man whose wallet is in a taxi. Men who look like me have the world's sympathy until they don't. Room 12 smells like lemon cleanser, despair, and a carry-out curry no one finished. I put my bag on the chair, my ear to the wall, and my jokes in a drawer. The bond thread goes quiet. He's too busy for me now, or I'm too far, or he's telling himself he is. I take a shower hot enough to call me names and stand under it until my muscles remember I've promised to keep them. When I come out, the window above the AC unit is open a crack. I didn't leave it that way. It's a good trap. Fresh air is mercy. Fresh air is entrance. I go still. The floor hums with a truck 3 blocks over. The building's bones creak around me, ancient and eager. If I move, I telegraph. If I don't, I invite. The window coughs a rain scent. Under it, a different smell. Oil. Salt. Rope. Dockside. Men who move freight for a living don't like questions. Men who move freight that thinks it should walk itself like questions even less. If they came here, they didn't come to debate ethics. I back to the door, soft. The lamp looks like it might cry if I give it bad news. On the bathroom mirror, fingerprints where there shouldn't be any. Not mine. Big. Careless. From the hall, a footfall. 2. A scrape. Like someone politely introducing a crowbar to a latch. I don't say Ruan out loud. The bond thread says it for me. He's not here. He's arriving. He's been following the other trail, the one that leads to a pissed-off group of men who think they can sell starting over by the pound. He'll come in hard enough to keep the walls awake, and soft enough not to spill anyone he doesn't have to. The first man through the door isn't him. He's broad, scrubbed, and built like an apology you don't accept. The second is narrow, with a good knife. The third stays in the hall to watch the world not notice. I could slip through the bathroom window. I could leave Ruan a ruin to walk into. I don't. Wrong room, I say cheerfully. Unless you've come about the Wi-Fi. They've come to see whether I'm the name they think I am. They've come to make an example of one of my aliases. They've come because I made them angry 3 nights ago by moving a girl with bad papers and good reasons out of their hands and into a van that didn't ask her to pay in skin. Come quiet, the broad one says. And we won't. The door behind them opens on a voice that turns air into attention. You won't, Ruan says. Finish that sentence. Silence like a held plate. I don't breathe. The men don't breathe either, but for different reasons. Ruan steps into the frame. No uniform, just a jacket that behaves like one. He catalogs the room in a single sweep. Me, hands visible, them, dumb with surprise, the angle of the second man's knife, the third man's stance telegraphing his lack of commitment. Hello, I say, because if I don't, my heart will climb out of my throat and do it for me. The narrow man with the knife lunges. He's not bad. He's practiced on meat, and I don't mean that metaphorically, but he doesn't know what men like Ruan do with angles. Ruan uses his wrist, a knee, and a wall in a combination that should be illegal if you care about walls. The knife clatters and goes under the bed like a dog that knows when to leave adults to their conversation. The broad man swings. Ruan steps in so close, it looks like a hug and becomes a lever, a pivot, a floor. The man meets it with his back and decides he never liked ceilings anyway. The third man hesitates, picks flight, and finds the hallway full of 2 uniforms who learned from the best in the room. It takes seconds. It takes all the air. The bond thread lights my bones in white. Not attraction, I tell myself. Not relief. Recognition only. Professional. Clean. Hands where I can see them, Ruan says to the broad one, who is busy remembering his mother's good advice. Then, to me without looking, you had options. I did, I say. You weren't one of them. He glances at me. It's unfair how much he can communicate with a single inch of head turn. Disapproval, confirmation, a measure taken, the edge of something else he isn't naming. He checks the corners, the window, the hall again. His presence evacuates doubt like smoke out a fan. Who tipped you? The narrow man groans from the floor. He sounds like a man unused to being outthought by a room. No one, I say. You track stinks like diesel. Could smell you from the lobby. Ruan's mouth threatens a shape. It thinks about it. It doesn't quite get there. He kneels, cuffs the man with economy. The cuffs are the A series. The etching gleams as if remembering me. The bond thread warms, a quiet blush under the bruise of adrenaline. Don't, I tell it, and the heat pulls back like a tide with good sense. The uniforms in the hall trade looks that say this would have gone differently if he hadn't arrived. They're right. It would have gone worse. Them. Possibly for me. You shouldn't be here, Ruan says without looking up. Agreed, I say. I'll tell the front desk to write a sternly worded review. Go, he says softly. Thought you wanted to catch me. I do, he says, and the words fall between us with the weight of something that has decided to be true. But not by letting you be the example these men try to set. Get out. I leave a note on the dresser because I am an idiot. It's not much. A napkin and the cafe pen and handwriting. I teach myself to change every week. Try arriving 5 minutes earlier. We both hate the paperwork. I slide it under his palm as I pass. He doesn't stop me. His hand covers the words like he could warm them into something else. At the threshold, I hesitate, because hesitation is a drug. I want one last look I can pretend I didn't take. He gives it to me without turning, a profile like a question mark, shoulders set to carry. For a breath, the corner of his mouth accepts the smile it's been offered all day. It lives and dies in the same second. I go, back through the market, where the vendor pretends not to recognize me as the man who did not turn, through the underground, where trains make everyone equal for a stop, into a night that thinks it knows my name and keeps getting it wrong. In the tunnel's sodium light, I let myself grin. The bond thread hums like a string plucked once, waiting to see who answers. Flirting is bad strategy, I tell my reflection in the window as the train pulls out. But so is pretending this isn't what it is. Nobody likes a smart omega. They like an obedient one. I've been both. I pick. Above ground, somewhere precise, a man who doesn't believe in indulgence slides a note into his pocket and lets the edge of a smile stay a fraction of a second longer than it has any right to. The hunt has shifted. We both know it. We both hate that we don't hate it more. Caleb's house smells like coffee and old paper, the kind of paper that remembers hands. Dust floats in the late afternoon like it's part of the decor. If you're going to hide, hide somewhere that knows how to keep quiet. I take the room that used to be his wife's sewing space. Spools gleam in a wooden tray like coins no longer in circulation. The window sticks in the frame. It opens if you talk to it first. Outside, the rain performs an encore against the porch roof. The old maple in the yard makes sign language at the sky. I write letters I'm not going to send. Dear Ms. Vasquez, you don't know me, and you shouldn't, but I thought you might like to know that the report you never saw says what you said it would. The people who needed to read it won't, but reports are stubborn. They live under doors you think are closed. Dear Ruan. No, dear Caleb. I'm sorry I brought the storm in with me. I fold each one once, twice, and slide them under a stack of case files whose edges have eaten the sleeves of their folders. My handwriting looks like I'm trying to outrun myself on the line. Caleb knocks on the door the way men who were once cops knock. Knuckles, pause, breath, patience. He comes in with 2 mugs. His hair has gone from practical to honest gray. His beta scent sits low and steady in the room like a second hearth. He sets a mug on the desk and pushes aside a box of mislabeled buttons. "I made the good coffee," he says. "Not the one for guests I don't like. I thought I was a guest you don't like. I'm retired." He shrugs, which on him is an essay about priorities. "We can upgrade your status to family until you leave again." "I'm not staying," I say. "You never do." He looks at the window like it owes him rent. "He near?" I consider lying. It's a bad habit to practice in a house that has seen me bleeding truth on the carpet. "He's near like weather is near." Caleb grunts. "Weather eats roofs. So do termites. We don't outlaw wood. That's because wood doesn't write laws." He plants himself in the chair opposite, like a man who has decided to be furniture in case I try to run past. "You can't run forever, Kris. An alpha doesn't let go until he decides he's caught what he came for. I didn't invite him." "You don't have to." He nods at my left wrist, where a faint warmth has been playing peekaboo with my pulse since I walked in. "You'll hum for him until you're done pretending you don't." I put my palm over the cuff scar and feel it answer. Not visible yet. Just a suggestion underneath the skin, like a word trying on your mouth for fit. "It isn't a bond," I say, too quickly. "It's an artifact." He sips. "Don't let it hear you call it that." We sit with the rain for a while. Sometimes that's the only conversation worth having. The house answers back, the water heater clearing its throat, the radiator rediscovering opera, the fridge practicing a scale. I watch the downspout gulp. "If you're going to keep that window open," Caleb says, "put a towel there. It leaks like confession." I like the sound. You like pretending the world's louder than you are. He lets the line sit without a hook. "You're tired." "I'm fine." "You're a man running on fine." Don't dignify it by calling it fuel. He studies my face, the way he used to read interview rooms. What the light does to the truth when it hits it at an angle. Eat, then sleep, then decide which mistake you can live with. He leaves me with the good coffee and a plate of toast that tastes like the way kitchens look in memory. The house gets darker in the considerate way old houses do, checking each corner to see if it wants light or not. I put the mug down and roll up my sleeve. The mark isn't visible until I think it is. I think of him, of his hand on the chain, the way his voice changed on please, the notch on his mouth that didn't belong to discipline, the way the field went warm under my skin like a body deciding to keep mine company. Gold wakes under the surface of my forearm, a soft embering that follows the cuff's ghost. Not dramatic, not a brand, a pulse that rises to meet the thought and retreats when I scold it. "Don't," I tell it, because apparently I own exactly one command, and it's addressed to myself. The mark brightens in answer, a quiet, stubborn yes. I laugh once, not kindly. "Fine." There's a bottle of rubbing alcohol on the shelf over the sewing table, next to a tin of buttons stamped with extinct brands. I soak a cotton pad and press it to the glow. Cold, then colder, then a sting that climbs into my elbow and decides to unpack. The mark's light jitters, pain makes it jitter more. I keep the pressure even, like you do when you patch a wound you don't intend to honor with a scar. The room blurs at the edges. The mark throbs against the alcohol with a stubborn, living rhythm. "Be sensible," I say through my teeth. "We don't do this." It answers by refusing to fade. Not brighter, more present, like a conscience with good timing. My hand shakes. The cotton pad skids, the sting becomes ache, becomes something I don't have a drawer for. I switch tactics. Caleb keeps ice in a dish towel in the freezer because he's the sort of man who believes the world can be improved by the judicious application of cold cloths. I fetch it, sit, and press the bundle to my skin until it burns backward into numb. The glow tightens to a coin, then a pin, Then a dot under the ice's insistence. My breath forgets how to be gracious. My fingers tremble like they've been told a joke they can't share. The mark refuses to die. It becomes small and mean about it. I exhale and put the towel down. I don't look at my reflection in the dark window. I already know what my face is doing. Austerity with a crack. What if I just decide not to think of you? I say to the house, which has been patient with worse. The house creaks, which I choose to interpret as good luck. I eat Caleb's toast because he was right. The body is a pet that needs straightforward care. I write one more letter I don't send. Dear Ruan, you are extremely inconvenient. That done, I sleep because my skull has been kind and heavy all day, and men who don't sleep make bargains with shadows. I lie on my side to keep the mark from finding the pillow. The rain makes a corridor out of the night and leads me in. I dream in heat. It isn't the nice kind. It's the kind that remembers teeth, restraint, breath in chambers it shouldn't occupy. The dream is a hallway with doors that open to rooms I've already visited. Dockside, the market, the motel, the roof. In each one, the air has been folded with a clean hand and laid on a chair. In each one, he's almost there. Don't, I say, and the word doesn't sound like no. It sounds like wait. He answers, not with a voice. Voices are for waking, but with presence, the way a storm answers a field. The bond thread hums until the room I've borrowed thinks I've turned on the radio. Warmth moves along my forearm, thoughtful, and stops short of the wrist, as if we agreed to a border in a language we don't speak. In the dream, he stands far enough away to be polite and close enough to be a promise. He doesn't touch me. The restraint is louder than contact would be. The house breathes with us. Somewhere the fridge attempts a hymn and gives up. I wake with the taste of his nearness in my mouth, like a word I should not say in public. The mark glows through my skin, gold softened by skin's own velvet. The pain from the alcohol has settled into something bearable. My hand has stopped shaking except when I look at it. Caleb is standing in the doorway with a second mug and the kind of face betas make when they've decided to be kind even if it hurts less not to be. You talked in your sleep, he says. Anything actionable? Just don't. In 3 dialects, economical, I sit, and the blanket attempts to follow me like a loyal creature. How many days can I borrow this room? 2, he says. 3 if you eat without me reminding you. 0 if you try to cut that thing out of your skin. Don't be stupid. Stupid is loud. I tried cold and reasoned. It made a counter-argument. It will. He sets the mug down and looks at my arm. Not like a man hungry for gossip, but like a carpenter measuring a board. He's not going to let go, Kris. Not because he's cruel. Because he's decided. And I get no vote? You get all the votes, Caleb says. But you also get math. He nods toward the window where the rain is holding a referendum on roofs. You'll have to turn and face the weather. Fine, I say, because I am a man who bargains with words when he has none left. 1 more day of letters I don't send. Then I'll decide which mistake won't keep me up at night. Caleb smiles into his coffee like a man who has trained himself to be good at small victories. Eat first, he says, then decide. After he leaves, I put my hand over the mark, and the mark warms my palm. Back, like an animal that has been waiting for permission to breathe. I close the window because the house asked nicely. I watch the rain for a count of 3, then 4. Not yet, I tell the world. But soon. The glow dims in agreement or defiance, I can't tell which, and tucks itself under my skin, patient as law, obstinate as weather. The roof remembers us. It greets my boots with the same slick welcome, the same reluctant, gritty give beneath the thin sheen of rain. The neon city stutters at the edges, as if trying to blink water out of its eyes. Wind moves against my clothes with the ungenerous hands of an old friend. When I step out of the stairwell, the air is cold enough to reset a man and warm enough, in the wrong places, to make him honest. I've been here before. I've been here in my bones for weeks. He is already at the far side, near the service ladder. The kind of positioning that says he's thought this through, and then thought it through again. He isn't in uniform. He doesn't need the costume. The authority sits on him like another layer of muscle. The rain can't quite make up its mind about him. It beads on his hair, his lashes, his jacket. It slips off his jaw like it's been told to behave. Late, I say, because the first cut should be shallow. On time, he answers, and then we do not talk. We move. It isn't a fight, not at first. It's what you do when you've read each other's files too many times and the only thing left is to see if the handwriting matches the hand. He closes the distance with a step that belongs to a different sort of room. I angle away, letting the chain link fence at the roof's edge become a partner I don't love. He takes my wrist. I take his weight and give it back. He pivots. I pivot. Our shoes scuff rain into diagrams that will mean something to no one at dawn. He is precise, without cruelty. I am efficient, without flair. Together we draw a shape that looks like a promise told in a language the body learned before the mouth did. Say you surrender, he says, because rituals are anchors. Say you don't want to mark me right here, I say, because I'm still me, even when the world is an inch from my mouth. His breath touches my cheekbone when he leans in, heat threaded with steel and storm. The bond thread inside me rises like a tide that has been watching the moon too long. My hands choose the stupidest bravery. I slip my cuffed wrist against the inside of his forearm, feel the dry heat of skin under the rain, and press where the veins speak. The mark under my skin answers in light. Not bright enough to blind, bright enough to name. Gold wakes along the curve of the cuff's ghost, the etched pattern hidden in. The metal memory on my flesh flares like a low fire fanned by a careful hand. It casts itself to him by instinct, and under the wet at his wrist, a corresponding glow opens its eyes. His fingers tighten, just a fraction, not pain. Kris. The sound of my name in his mouth pulls a line tight from my chest to my throat. The world gets very specific. The slick seam in the concrete under my heel, the exact spot on his thumb where an old scar catches water, the way the city's neon cools to the color of a bruise. I try to step, he redirects. He tries to cage. I become absence. We trade gravity, and the roof witnesses a dance that never learned to smile. He tests a pin, one knee brushing a field of bone that keeps men from forgetting humility. I slip my weight, submit an inch, take a different inch back. He exhales through his nose, an approval he didn't mean to share. Then the thing we've been pretending not to look at looks back. The bond thread arcs, no chain, no shackle, just resonance, frequency, a matched note sung from two sides of the same room. The light under my skin brightens, and his catches, our breath knots itself where the air enters. The rain seems to pause between falling and forgetting how. Instinct is clumsy. It wants to press, to bite, to take. It wants to make a map out of skin and claim the right to redraw it. I flinch, not away from him, away from the part of me that has been waiting for this stage cue since dockside. He feels it. Of course he does. He feels the terror, the old one, the one that smells like rooms where locks do the talking and pens are sharpened on names. I see the calculation pass through him. You can force anything that moves if you stop believing it's a person. He doesn't. He eases. The pressure in his grip shifts. His body does the hardest thing a body like his can do. It decides to be patient. He doesn't let go. He holds. He doesn't go soft. He goes steady. He becomes a wall I can lean on without conversion. The light under his skin flickers like a heartbeat that refuses to speed up merely because the song did. You want me to catch you, he says, and it sounds like a translation of something closer to the bone. I want you to understand why I ran, I answer, and that's the closest I've come to prayer in a long time. Rain drums on the AC unit, relentless as a metronome. Somewhere below, a door bangs and someone swears, and the world continues, doing what it does when it isn't standing on a roof holding its breath. I look up into his face because humiliation has an uglier aftertaste than honesty. I ran because you wrote a law that says men like me are safer if they stop belonging to themselves, I say, and the sentence is smoother than the road it came from. I ran because you called obedience protection and asked me to sign. I ran because I told the truth in a room designed to punish it, and the room did what it was built to do. He's very still when he listens. He listens like a man who's been taught to collect, not to feel. But the tight line at the corner of his mouth is not discipline. It's fatigue. The small tick in his throat is not impatience. It's a swallow. I read your logs, he says, after a long time. The parts that weren't about you, the margins, I say. My favorite crime. The names you wrote there, he says. The ones you made larger by writing them small. Yes, I say. And then, because I am a comedian in the wrong bar, also, the coffee at Dockside is a sin we should legislate first. Something breaks in his face. A not smile. It escapes, lives a small, honest life, and dies without ceremony. The city throws a violin of sirens, and he doesn't turn to look. He pulls me closer, but not the way the story wanted us to go. It's not a take, it's a gather. He says nothing about surrender. His hand leaves my wrist and goes to my elbow, warm as a mistaken afternoon. I lean, not because my legs are weak, but because my body wants to find out if there is a way to inhabit the space near him without losing parts I want to keep. There is. It's narrow, and it's new, and it's ours for exactly as long as we decide it is. The mark flares, unhelpfully moved by symbolism. Heat spills in a clean line up my forearm, catches at the hinge of my jaw, settles, somewhere behind my tongue, like a word that isn't meant for the papers. Under his skin the same arc answers, an echo too well tuned to pass for coincidence. We stand in the rain and light each other from the inside, the way windows do when people forget to close the curtains. His mouth is near my ear. I don't think he leans. I think the world makes sure of it. If I take you in, he says, they will use you to prove the law works. They will make a speech that has your breath in it, and call it reform. I know, I say, and if you don't, they will use you to prove the law works, and they will make a speech with my absence in it and call it justice. He breathes out. The roof keeps us upright. I don't break, he says, like an old oath, turning over to make room for a blanket. I press. I know, I say softly. But there are other verbs. We stand in it. The verb we pick is hold. Around us the city goes on with the polite rudeness of a neighbor. Rain makes our hair ridiculous and our clothes honest. The bond thread hums into something that could be called warm if you subtract all the words we've taught ourselves to use against need. Tell me, he says, how to keep you from becoming the example they want. Lie, I say. Tell them I fell off this roof. Tell them the cuffs failed. Tell them I bled out on the concrete and that you were sorry. Write it in a font they respect. He is quiet so long I count to 4 and wonder what 5 would taste like. You want me to kill you on paper. I want to live where the paper can't find me. I look down at the distance between my boot and the edge. It's less than honesty and more than mercy. You know how to make men disappear without burying them. I know you do. It's in your training. Between the lines, he doesn't deny it. He doesn't confirm it. He is a man whose face is blacked out in other people's reports. If I do this, he says, you will leave the city. You will stop correcting laws with your body. You will stop writing your name where it can be read. You're asking me to live small, I say. I'm asking you to live, he says. The rain is suddenly 1,000 small fingers playing the roof like an instrument I don't know the name of. The mark on my forearm glows less earnestly, as if it's been allowed to attend the meeting but not vote. I close my eyes and imagine the ocean. Smell metal instead. I open them and imagine mercy. Find him. Okay, I say, but not because you ordered it. Because? Because I choose you choosing me, I say, and it is the worst and bravest sentence I have produced in years. He makes a sound, not approval, not victory, something older. He draws me the last inch until my forehead finds the place under his jaw, where he smells least like iron and most like the storm before this one. He doesn't kiss me. He doesn't need to. The restraint is the thing that lets the heat become something other than fire. Walk, he says finally, and the word is so gentle it surprises the rain into pausing. Not down. In. He tips his head toward the stairwell door. Inside. Out of this. I let him take my elbow, because letting him is a choice I have earned. We move together, and the roof keeps the score. 2 sets of footfalls, one slightly too careful, one that has learned to be. The stairwell smells like old paint and cold air and 1,000 past arguments. He takes the first step, and I take the next, our hands not quite touching, our arguments taking the night off. At the landing, he stops. We listen to the building breathe. We listen to the rain reconsider. He looks at my arm, where the light has retreated under the skin, like a well-trained animal. He doesn't reach. He doesn't ask. He meets my eyes instead, and lets me watch him decide. Tomorrow, he says, there will be a report. It will be clean. It will be wrong. You will not read it. I will, I say, because I'm perverse. In a cafe that serves crimes as coffee, a beat, the not smile returns, shy enough to be mistaken for a tic. Don't. Can't help it. He nudges the door open with his shoulder, and the hallway gives us an ordinary yellow light that makes us look like people who know how to go home. He doesn't take my cuffs off. He doesn't tighten them either. He holds the chain like a man holds the strap on a train, not to own it, but to keep steady. At the threshold I stop, because the roof has one more trick to play. The wind kicks, the rain slaps, the city sighs, and the edge of the world pretends to be closer than it is. I turn back and look at the slick square of space where I had planned, earlier, to be brave in a way that ends conversations. Do you know, I say, how ridiculous that looked from the outside? He follows my gaze, reads the scene, then lets his eyes return to me with the kind of patience that could rehabilitate a country. Agreed, he says dryly. Your coordination is terrible. The laugh comes out of me without permission. It's small and honest and lives, like his not smile, a full second. Then, we go inside. He closes the door on the rain, but not on the storm we brought with us. He doesn't put me in a cell. He doesn't put me anywhere I didn't walk to with him. He takes me out of the weather and into a hallway that smells like decisions, and for the first time in weeks, my body believes it will be asked, not used. The bond thread hums once, approval or warning, who can tell, and quiets. The building keeps our secret. The city, for a merciful moment, forgets our names. The isolation chamber hums the way deep water does, low, patient, without opinion. Everything smells like metal, and something pretending to be air. The fluorescent lights above never blink, they just hum, endlessly professional about being cruel. I sit in a chair bolted to the floor. Behind the glass, Ruan stands where men like him always stand, perfectly, upright, as if the body could apologize for what the mind is doing. We've been like this for 15 minutes, maybe 30. Time folds strangely when it has nothing to do. You look alive, he says finally. It's not a question. That's the rumor. I flex my fingers against the table's surface. The cuffs are gone. Habit keeps my wrists together anyway. His reflection in the glass overlays mine. 2 faces spliced at the middle like a composite. He looks tired, not the kind that sleep fixes, the kind that honesty would. He steps closer, close enough that the faint halo of the room's cold light finds the scar on his temple again. I think of the first night on the roof, how that scar caught the rain and refused to let go. You could make this easier, he says. I thought I did. By not dying. That's not what they asked for. His tone is mild, but the words hang sharp. They asked for closure. I laugh, small and useless. Closure is for files, not people. He doesn't smile. His eyes are steady, but the focus drifts. He's not studying me anymore. He's studying the idea of me. You know what they'll do if I deliver you alive? Yes, I say. They'll call it procedure. Then they'll fix the paperwork so no one has to learn from it. The silence that follows isn't hostile. It's exhausted. A kind of truce that comes when both sides realize they've been arguing with mirrors. He picks up the folder on the console beside him. I can't read the cover, but I know the color of an execution form when I see it. The seal gleams faintly under the light. He opens it, flips past the first page, stops somewhere in the middle, and stares down for a long time. The paper softens a little under his thumb. When he looks up, there's no command in him, only decision. You could leave, he says. There's an exit 3 levels down. If you take the maintenance corridor, no cameras, you'd have to write a hell of a report. I already did, he says. It says you didn't make it. The air in my chest forgets what to do with itself. You forged my death? I prefer to think I reassigned it. His mouth twitches, almost irony. They'll accept it. They need to believe their world still works. And you? I don't. He sets the folder down, closes it with deliberate care, and places. His hand flat on it like he's swearing an oath he doesn't trust. For a long time, I don't speak. There's nothing to say that doesn't ruin the silence. I watch the small tremor that travels from his thumb to the edge of his palm, the way even control has muscles that get tired. You could still change your mind, I say finally. Tell them I fought, that I'm done telling stories for other people. His voice cracks, not loud, but true. I'll keep this one. We stare at each other through the glass. The hum of the air system feels like breathing for the room. The bond thread between us, it hasn't let go. It sits under my skin, quiet, waiting for permission to be something else. He's watching it too. I can tell by the way his gaze flicks toward my arm and away again. I need to see, he says softly. I lift my wrist. The faint gold shimmer blooms just enough to paint a small reflection on the barrier. His hand rises on the other side, palm to palm, glass between. The static hums. The air gets denser, heavy with memory. When his skin meets the barrier, the mark answers. The light threads upward, bright and quick, tracing my veins, then spilling outward across the invisible divide to meet the echo on his side. For a moment, we're joined again, not through contact, but through what contact meant. Let it go, he says. I'm trying, I whisper. The glow brightens, resists. Then, with the faintest sound, something between a sigh and a cord snapping, it fades. The heat drains from my arm. The ache that follows is clean, honest. When I open my palm, the light is gone. Only a pale outline remains, like a scar that hasn't yet decided what story to tell. Ruan lowers his hand, staring at his own reflection, as if the ghost of the glow is still there. That should hurt. It does. Good. We both exhale, and the air tastes different. Less electric, more human. Closes the folder. The seal clicks into place like punctuation at the end of a lie. Then he picks it up and turns toward the door. The motion is slow, deliberate. He pauses at the threshold, looks back once. You'll have a head start, he says. 3 days. After that, I can't stop them from reopening the file. I nod. You're not the kind of man who likes leaving sentences unfinished. He almost smiles. You're not the kind of man who stays gone. The door slides open, flooding the room with a thin slice of real air from the corridor beyond. He hesitates. One hand on the frame. You should know, he says, without turning. I'm not doing this for you. I know, I say. That's why it matters. He leaves before I can ruin it with anything sentimental. The hum of the door seals the world again. I sit for a while, staring at my own reflection, until it looks like someone I could believe in. The scar on my wrist throbs once, faintly, then settles. A reminder, not a leash. Somewhere above, a filing cabinet closes. The report that declares me dead begins its slow, bureaucratic afterlife. The system sighs in satisfaction. The city, faithful servant that it is, will adjust. I rest my hand against the cold glass where his had been. Thank you, I tell the silence, because that's what you do when there's no one left in the room. The silence, professional as ever, doesn't answer, but I like to think it listens. Mornings here have a soft spine. The harbor wakes without hurry. Gulls practice their arguments on the pier. The water folds and unfolds itself like a shirt someone finally learned to love. I sweep the warps of sawdust from the shop's doorway into a pile the color of bread. Across the street, the cafe turns on its chalkboard sign and writes the day's lie, fresh pastries, over yesterday's truth. The air tastes like salt and oranges, and the kind of coffee that forgives you for needing it. My name isn't Kris here, not the name I sign to receipts anyway. On paper, I am someone with fewer opinions and more patience. In the ledger, I'm the man who fixes skegs and replaces frayed lines and tells old hulls they're still beautiful if they'll meet him halfway. Freedom is louder than I remember. It clatters when the dock boards shift under your boots. It laughs when the bait shop's doorbell complains. It groans when a trawler reverses badly and pretends it meant to. It's also quieter, the hush that follows honest work, the privacy of choosing which window to open and how far. I have a room over the shop with a slant roof, a bed that accepts me without commentary, and a dresser that creaks like it's telling secrets. I sleep with the window cracked, and the sea airs out whatever the city forgot in me. "You're late," Mrs. Ibarra announces from the open bay of the shop. She's 70 if a day, and navigates the world with a cane that has opinions. She is in love with her boat, and tolerates me because I'm good to her. I check the clock. By all measurable standards, I'm early. You owe my Catalina an apology. I bow to the Catalina, whose stern has the sort of gravitas reserved for saints and long-running television shows. "I have wronged you." Mrs. Ibarra's mouth twitches. She taps the cane on the concrete. Rust on the aft cleat. "See to it." "Yes, ma'am." When she leaves, I take my coffee to the lip of the dock and sit. The breeze presses the hair off my forehead like a hand that means well. I let my feet dangle and listen to the hollow knock of water against hulls. There's a hole in the morning where anxiety used to be. You can put anything in a hole like that. Faith, a sandwich, a promise you'll probably keep. Mostly, I put silence in it. Silence is a good tenant. The scar on my wrist is pale now, not fond of dramatics. Sometimes, when rain threatens, the skin warms as if it remembers something worth missing. Sometimes I press my thumb to it and feel nothing at all. "Hey, Navid," calls Marco from the bait shop. My name here, a borrowed one that wears well. "You fixing Ibarra's mule?" "She prefers Catalina," I say. "She prefers tribute," he says, and goes back to gutting a fish with the fondness of a man who has found his art. At noon, I eat a sandwich that believes in itself and read the tide chart like an oracle that over-explains. In the afternoon, a boy named Luis brings me his father's old life vest and stands very straight while I replace the clasps. "I'm saving for a boat," he informs me, deadly serious. "How much you got?" $7. "Then I know a boat with your name on it," I tell him, and hand him a paper cup of screws to keep for when the world requires bribery. This is what the days look like, small problems that consent to being solved. Weather. That arrives when predicted. People who want practical magic and pay in cash. I send letters I never posted into the sea in the form of skipped stones. I sleep. I don't dream, and if I do, I'm kind to myself about it. And then, because the universe is a comedian with timing, someone knocks. 2 measured raps against the shop's front door. The kind you make when you already know the room. I don't get up right away. Habit and hope are in a staring contest behind my ribs. Rain hasn't started, but the air is busy deciding. The gulls pause mid-argument to see if the story is interesting. I wasn't expecting anyone, I say, mostly to the Catalina, who does not consent to be my confessional. A voice through the door, warm as a hand over a kettle. You should have. The first breath I take is stingy. The second has better manners. I stand and wipe sanding dust off my palms like I need to be presentable for a man who has seen me considerably less so. He's there, not uniformed. The jacket is civilian, soft at the collar, the line of the shoulders a choice, not a command. He carries a small bag like he intends to stay, only as long as the bag allows. The hair is shorter than before, and the scar at his temple has decided to be a part of the face instead of a footnote. The smile, the one the city never let live full length, exists now, cautious but honest. Ruan, I say, because I always have been bad at pretending a thing isn't the thing it is. Kris, he answers, and the way he says it sounds like a welcome and a memory and a decision. For a second, neither of us moves. The tide samples the dock with a curious slap. The world is too ordinary to hold this. You found me, I say. He tips his head, conceding the obvious. Promised, I would. Persistent, I say. Accurate, he says. Stubborn. Conscientious. We stare. And then the absurdity of us makes my mouth find a laugh. It's small and unhandsome and entirely mine. He looks relieved by it in a way he doesn't hide. You look, I want to say, alive. I want to say different. I want to say the same man, less armored. You look like you slept. I did. He sets the bag down at his feet. Eventually. Did the report sleep too? It passed quietly, he says, and only we would make a joke of death paperwork. You were very brave. Tragic, even. I do tragic well, I say. It's the comedy I'm working on. Keep working. His eyes move past me into the shop. The orderly chaos, coils of line, jars of bolts, the Catalina sulking. You've been good here. I've been quiet, I say. Not the same thing. It's a start. I step back. The door is still open. He doesn't cross the threshold without permission. Men who have used doors for power learn how to make them humble. You here to arrest me? I ask. Because I am a coward that insists on ritual. No, he says. I'm here to keep a promise. Which one? The one about not stopping, he says. The almost smile doing real work now. Until I catch you. He says it lightly, but we both hear the new meaning. He doesn't have to mark me. That isn't what this is. He doesn't have to own anything but his choice. The bond thread, if it still lives anywhere but the memory of our hands, hums like something that has forgiven itself for being loud once. I let him in. He steps carefully around the toolbox I never put away, and stops where the light from the back window turns sawdust into pollen. Up close, he smells less like metal and more like rain that has decided to be kind. My wrist warms under the skin. No glow, just a private ascent. Coffee, I offer. I won't say no. You rarely do, I say, and set water to boil on the hot plate that has opinions about patience. He looks at the wall of tools like they're a map he can read. I look at his hands like they're a language that finally learned me. Do they know you're gone? I ask. They know I'm not there, he says. Which is different. Resignation? Leave, he says, shrugging a shoulder. The kind with no ceremony, which suits us. Us, I say, testing the plural for structural integrity. He doesn't rescue me from it. If you want it, I pour coffee into 2 chipped mugs with saints faded to friendly ghosts. We sit on the threshold, half in, half out, like people undecided about the weather. The harbor performs calm. A cloud considers becoming rain and files the paperwork. Tell me about the Catalina, he says. It's a small question, and the correct one. She pretends to be old because she likes being fussed over, I say. Actually, she wants to race. Will she? Only if her owner forgives her for winning. He nods like boats are people and people are boats, which in towns like this is both metaphor and manual. And you, he says, softer. What do you want? I don't answer right away. A gull makes a noise like a disagreement with God. The first drop hits the threshold, fat, polite, a test. The smell of rain rises, and for the first time since the roof, it doesn't sound like an ending. It smells like a room being aired out, like a page being turned by weather's hand. I want, I say, and the sentence has to be built plank by plank, to hold a thing without breaking it, to be held without being claimed, to be allowed to be funny badly, to fix what I can reach, and forgive what I can't. And me, he says, not as a demand, but as a check. You, I say, because the truth is kinder when it doesn't make you chase it. To stay, if you can, or to go and return, to stand in a doorway and look like that. To keep choosing what you decided on that night. He drinks his coffee. The almost smile relaxes its shoulders and becomes itself. I can do that, he says. We talk nonsense for a time because nonsense is a bridge you don't have to name. He tells me how the city sounds when you're leaving it at dawn. I tell him how the harbor smells when a storm decides to be theatrical and then forgets its lines. We invent a future that starts at lunch, which is the only way futures become real, bite by bite. When the rain commits, it's not a downpour. It's a rehearsal played for friends. We stand. He takes my mug. I take his. We are ridiculous like that. On the step, the world is 2 shades of wet and 1 of promise. He looks at me, and the space between us arranges itself into consent. Walk? He says. Not down, I say, the old reflex turning into something with edges sanded. In, he repeats, smiling. Home or cafe? Both, I say. Eventually. He lifts the bag, and I take one strap as if I belong to the physics of carrying with him. We don't touch hands. We don't have to make a ceremony where a fact will do. The door swings shut behind us on the little bell that can't keep a secret. The Catalina forgives us for abandoning her rust. On the street, Mrs. Ibarra appraises Ruan and files him under acceptable weather. Marco pretends he's not watching. Luis salutes with the gravity of a future boat owner. Everyone's very subtle, Ruan says. They practice, I say. We walk. The rain gives the town a new skin. It smells like a beginning I can believe in. The scar on my wrist warms once, and then, blessedly, rests. If there is a bond thread, it has learned to sing soft. Until I catch you, he says. Not a threat, not a warning. A vow as gentle as this morning. You will, I say. And I'll let you. That defeats the sport. We'll invent a new sport, I say. One where winning looks like staying. He considers it. I could learn the rules. We'll write them, I say, and take him in out of the rain.